Video of the 40th reunion speeches by 9 of the 14 members of St. Albans class of 1966.
And secondly, I belong to Nat Fisher House. Now, you see, in the old days, if you weren't good at sports, now, you know, Nat Fisher House is the nerd house. And in the old days, if you weren't good at sports, well, I wasn't very good at sports in those days, but I've rectified that now. And they relegated you to the cake. The cricket cake league. Now, that's the only place I could become the captain. So Harry Burrow, and you know, they said, well, if you win this, you get a cake. And this was prepared by his wife, lady. So we won those matches. But I didn't go collect it because you had to collect it, the cake from their house where they stayed, from Sylvia. So I was in vice captain. Well, you know, with us nerds, as I say, now in the past you always get prizes for, you know, rugby and all that. But I said that maybe there was something missing here. If they had something for academic, maybe we'll win more prizes. Now, even like in the days with the athletics days, now, you know, as a nerd, when those days come, it was a nightmare. You know what I mean? But at the same time, but even if it was a test, we were there, you know, we were happy. And I remember, as you say, well, St. Albans, we were few in number, and I remember this, it's really a nightmare too, right? We were playing St. John's, I think, and I wasn't in the first team, of course, because, you know, but I was 8th man of the second team. And what happened here is that because we didn't have any reserves, so I think it was Farquharson. He was the hooker, not the hooker that you know in the so he got injured. So I'm playing in another match down on the other field. Another message now. Albert, you have to come along. What are you going to do? They say you got to go play. You got to be in the hooker position. I go by hooking. It was really a nightmare. But you know, when you think about it, it's really it's memories that you've got to treasure because those never come again. And even in my old age, you know, they said, well, you know, when you were younger and everything you go through all your life, you weren't a very good talker, you know. And I went to university. I started as chemical engineering. I wanted to do aeronautical engineering, but you know, as you said, you know, with like the conscription there, you know, they didn't want me to have a rifle. They didn't want me to have a jet plane. So I couldn't get into aeronautical engineering, so I went into chemical engineering. I was just waiting for them to come back to me and say, you know, you can't because you made this. The short and eventually, basically, what happened is that even that didn't work out because we ran out of money. So I had to become an accountant because I had to study. I used to work during the day and went to university at night. And then I became an accountant. And that I didn't really do for too long. became a financial director of one of the subsidiaries of SA Breweries and all that. That was very stressful. And then I went into a more stressful thing. I'm really silly, you know. And became a insurance consultant for 20 years, 22 odd years with Liberty Life. And you know, well, it maybe brought me out of my shop because you had to be forced to do that. And well, you know, because of that, we're becoming an accountant and all that sort of thing. That's where I met my wife. Because what happened is that I worked for a Jewish company, and my Jewish friend says, Albert, and they used to call me Albert Fung, you know. and sometimes they brought me the yarmulke, you know. Oh yeah. Well, out of that accounting thing, and they said, you know, you walk around with your eyes closed, and you know, you're like in a world of your own. But you know, I see this lovely girl walking around outside there. I said, where? What? And then eventually, it actually was my wife. She stayed in the flat. And then eventually we got married, and we got 2 lovely daughters. Maybe, you know, from the looks, they took after my wife. Maybe from the brain side. Yeah, we've got 2 daughters. They're qualified. They're working, and it's great. And today, what really impressed me is that, you know, all the students there outside there, they seem to, you know, exude this value, you know, of respect for your elders, respect for the people there, with respect for everybody around you. And the other thing too is that really impressed me was, now, as I said, in the old days, you probably only see white faces and maybe a spot of yellow faces. There was the whole spectrum. And the whole spectrum, and that is really encouraging, particularly for this country, because we need to really stand together. If this country is going to come out of this, you know, let's say, develop into a first world country. Thank you.
Ek dink wat julle mense moet kry, kom van die plaas. Ek was ook previously disadvantaged. Ek sal dit maklik maak, ek sal my Engels oefen vanaand. Now I came from the Free State when I came to school, and I was in a school, and there I'm more in the minority. I was a Roinek, which is English, and I was Jewish, so it was tough. And then I was called a Roinek and a Yurt and all things, and then I went to this school, and then I was called a Dutchman. Basically, I had this identity crisis ever since. It's been very difficult for me. Anyway, I would say in my life, my best asset in my life have been my mates, or the people or the friends that I've got, because that's something that you can count on, and that's something that means something to me. And I'd like to say to this class of 66, I class you as my mates. That was fantastic, and today just brought it all out to me. By profession, I'm a farmer, which has got basically 4 seasons. We plant, and then we worry, and then we harvest, and then we borrow. So really, it's great. I love it. It's my hobby and it's my life. I can't wish for anything more. I reckon I'm probably the most blessed man of everybody here. I've had a wonderful life, and I still have. And I love it, and I enjoy it, and I'm proud to be a South African farmer. It's something that's really close to my heart.
Please tell us what you farm. You can't just say
anything. I basically do nothing in the morning and I ease off in the afternoon. Crops and livestock, and it's just a general farming business, and I enjoy it. And then the Lord blessed me. I met a wonderful woman, Ernestine, and I married her, and we had 2 children. I've got a daughter of 32. Tomorrow is my wedding anniversary. Yeah. And then I've got a son of 30. My daughter has blessed us with 2 beautiful granddaughters, one of 4 and one of 18 months. And they're in Clarence. I live in Clarence. They might have heard of it. It's near Golden Gate. Somewhere in the Free State, yeah. And I've got a son that's in the Cape. He's an accountant. And then our kids went to, my daughter went to St. Michael's in Bloem. And then she went on to Stellenbosch. And my son went to St. Andrews in Bloem. And then on to Stellenbosch. So we had very good education. I think St. Albans was the first choice, but Todd was the headmaster at that stage, and his suggestion was that Bloem would be a good shout. And then when I left, I went to Wits, believe me or not. I finished medicine, and then I was a doctor. I think my family thought, well, this boy, if you can get in there, you have. That's it. That was a mistake, because I started playing rugby. Sport was overwhelming, and I had quite a good rugby career, enjoyed that. And Harry Burrell always said to me, Goldblatt, you'll play Currie Cup rugby. And I thought, oh, this guy hasn't got a clue, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he was right. I made it. I don't know how, but anyway. And I played it. I enjoyed the sport. I think in the Eastern Free State, I'm the only guy that's played rugby, cricket, and hockey. So it's actually quite a. And I think it comes from the school that gave me the opportunities to expand and to be able to understand and do those sports. And I thank the school for that. I'll get there. I was actually a slow starter when I was at school. It took me a while, you know. I got out, then I started, I think I just must have been in my early 20s. Then I started developing, then things started happening, you know. And then women, I thought, gee, that's another. Started taking notice and seeing that was great. And from there, it's just been great. So, but I promise you, my second wife's going to be nice. She couldn't be out, and she apologized. But on a more serious note, the school inculcated values in my life, and ethics and standards, and things that I apply in the business that I do, and wherever I go, those things are in front of me. You know, I always say to myself, is it honest, is it fair? Is that what a good, honest gentleman or man would do? And this school did those things for me. Later in life, when you're young, you don't appreciate that. You think these things are it's just words, it's idle things. But seriously, it means something. It meant a hell of a lot to me. I'm the proudest Albanian you'll get. I think this school, and to be a first matric class, to have been through all the praises and all the stuff that you gave us today, which I actually really don't want to be an eye surgeon. I think that really, I don't know if we deserve it. I think we just did. That was the task. We had to get out there and we just had to do it. I don't think there was any other option. I don't think we understood anything else. Well, Anton was the boss, and when the boss said you did it, you just did it. And I think that was how it worked, you know, none of us ever argued. And I've got one or two regrets in my life. I would say I would like to have gone on more holidays. And well, it's coming right. On Sunday we're going away for a few days, so maybe that's the turn. I'd like to have travelled more, which I can still do, and I will do. And I'd maybe like to read more, because those are things that I don't have enough, didn't do enough of, or maybe I can change in my life. And now, finally, I just want to thank all the masters that taught me. I know I was a little XYZ, and a difficult guy to teach. But there's one specific teacher that, unfortunately for him, or fortunately, he's not here tonight, and that's Peter Holman. Because I just want to tell him that he said to me, Goldblatt, you will not pass English. And you are going to mess up the average and this whole school's future. I think all my mates could see it. And I just sat down on my breath. I said, you bastard. And I did, and I think he taught me from that day. Listen, I'll show you, I can. But we all passed and it was great. But all the other teachers, and I go down and to Father Tim, thanks very much, and it was great to see you now. And you haven't aged. It's fantastic. I noticed that you took Basel. Thanks very much for everything you did. First, that gas poisoning wasn't that serious. It was well orchestrated. We all picked the poison and we got you boys dancing, didn't we? Yeah. And John Hogg, thanks for what you did first. Noel House was the best house. Yes. And to David Sonnepoel, thanks. And to Roger Wicken, for teaching us some maths. And the guys, I don't know if they're here with us anymore. Harry was there and Pine. Those are the guys. They're not with us anymore. And Skuman, what's his name? The old But thanks, and I think the school must carry on building with what we got, and I really appreciate what you've done for us. Thanks.
I was told it was kind of serious and you had to do other things. I always used to my parents were always impressed with my Latin report, because I always used to come first or second. And my father was really impressed when he found out there were only 2 of us in the class. I remember Roger Wickens coming into my cubicle the night before maths class the next day and saying, Frank, we've got these problems, let's sort them out together, because he had to teach it the next day. And Pine Pinot said to me, you're going to drag the school down because you're not going to pass Afrikaans. We had some incredible times. It was tough. I think right from the beginning we learned something that I will be with me for the rest of my life, and that was, I guess, the 2 words, respect and discipline. And it was the very first night of St. Albans, January 1963. It had been raining, there was mud around the place, the cars were skidding in sideways, and everyone was ankle deep in mud. And there were these 22 young guys, most of us didn't know each other, it was the first time we'd met, and 11 in each dormitory up in the school, in the classroom block. And Anton turned the lights out after prayers and so on, and said, good night, boys. And then there was one twit in our dormitory who said night, sir. And the lights went back on. And Anton said, who was that? And he said, me, sir. Who's that boy? Richardson, sir. He said, follow me. Now Graham thought he was going to be invited for coffee. I thought to go down to his study, and was it 6? No. 6 on your bum. You came back to the dormitory, you pulled your pants down, and 4 of them were bleeding. We knew on that first night who was in charge. Me. Anton was in charge. It was an amazing ride, and I think what happened when we all got to Matric, Tom made the good point, we'd been leaders for the whole time. And I think the Joint Matriculation Board were really kind, and they looked at these 14 guys and they said, let's just shovel them in. You know, as great as a chemist teacher was, as Detlef was, chemistry teacher, I know I never passed chemistry in the trick. It was impossible because I didn't answer the question. I still got through. The school was it was amazing. It was a privilege being here. And I think what we've been through today makes you think back at the special things that have happened in your life. And certainly St. Albans was one. And when I left here, I was fortunate enough to spend a year in the States on American field service. And that's 38, 39 years ago. And the family that I lived with in California, I'm still in touch with them every single week. And you talk about the relationships. And it's what we learned when we were here. And those relationships last. And then I got into the geological world, and I've been in that business ever since. And it was through geology that I ended up in Australia looking for a job, and where I met my wife Kay, who was visiting her sister, who happens to be married to my cousin, who's also a geologist. So it's kind of, and my brother-in-law was a geologist as well, so we've sort of got it in the family. There are rocks in our family. And Kay and I have 3 wonderful kids. Our eldest and his wife are both teachers. They're in the UK, and we're expecting our first grandchild in January, which is quite fun. And the other 2 are back here in South Africa. I then moved on from there into the corporate world and was with a great company called JCI for 23 years, and ended up in a very interesting situation, being in a boardroom facing a gentleman who may have heard of called Brett Kebbell. And one of us had to go, and it was me. And 8 years ago we set up our own business, and we offer an advisory service to the mining business out of Johannesburg, and I run that little business. But it's been a great ride, and we're having fun doing what we're doing, and I think that's the important thing in life. And Bradley, I like what you said, is certainly the way we run our lives is it's based on professionalism, honesty, ethics, morality, and it's all the things that we learned when we were here. And in the path that you walk in life, you come across people who don't espouse to those same moral standards and so on. And it's wonderful where you can draw the line in the sand and say that you're not going to transgress any further. And I guess that's something that we learned while we were here. Tom, to you and this wonderful place today has been quite extraordinary, and we thank you very much.
Yeah, I was never one of the candidates for the TC Mitchell Prize, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet. When I left here, I did my degree down in Cape Town. I took a little bit longer than I should have taken, but Cape Town's a great place, as many of us know, so it was quite a pleasant experience down there. Then I came back, I actually went down to Escort in Natal, where I spent 4 years building a bacon factory, and then I came back up here, joined a firm of architects here, and progressed quite well, and then we merged with one of the larger firms in Pretoria, and it's now in fact 102 years old. We've actually recently been appointed to do some of the work here at St. Albans, which has been very exciting and quite an interesting experience. We did the music school and some of the other buildings that Tom mentioned earlier. Yeah, I met my wife Zelda, and we obviously got married. So. And we live actually very close by to the school, yeah, so it's very, very easy for us to get here, although they never come here. So. But yeah, that's about it. Tom, I'd just like to say to you, yeah, you know, the show that you set up today was actually quite incredible, you and John. I think it was in fact very, very humbling to all of us. And I'd also just like to say to the rest of my classmates, it was great seeing you guys again and meeting with you all again. And yeah, let's go from here.
Okay, 40 years is a short time. I know that. It's gone by like a flash. And isn't it wonderful to hear us laugh about those happy occasions? And I particularly just want to share in more detail that gas poisoning incident. Really didn't do it much. It was really like this. I mean, Detlef was filling the science lab with deadly chlorine gas. It was green. It was coming out. Now, Farquharson, Goldblatt and I were allergic to chlorine. So our throats were almost closed. We went scooting off to the sand and Sister Willie's. Yeah. She came in, took one look at us and phoned my father. My father walked in and I winked at him and he knew all was alright, but he still got the gas mask on, and we had to spend at least a day there. But the worst part of it was that we had to take these pills. Now these pills were serious big jobs. And we decided we didn't really need these pills. So we chucked them out of the sand window, which was in Knoll House in those days, and they went all the way down to the bottom. And then Harry Burrell stormed up because his kids' mouths were full of these pills. Anyway, that wasn't the only incident that Farquharson and I had in the sand, because there was another occasion, I think it was shortly before the trial exam, where we both had these terrible headaches and a very dangerous flu that was going around. And we knew that it was flu because Sister Willie's gave us these thermometers. And when she wasn't looking, we could easily just slip them underneath and then when they were at the right temperature, we showed them to Sister Willie's, and of course we had these things. But weren't they wonderful days? Great. There were some defining moments in my life, and there are just three that I want to briefly tell you about. I'm going to leave out the army and the varsity and all those things. But my parents sent me here, and that was a defining moment. And when I look back on it, those pioneering days of playing rugby with no grass on the field, cricket with a hump in the middle of the pitch, the bounds chiming over all the gates, I don't regret a single day. And I think that what we need in this dear country of ours are people with that pioneering spirit, the spirit that my parents had, and I hope that I've given to my children. It is wonderful to go that full circle, Tom, that you referred to, because today I visited the Garden of Remembrance in the chapel, next to the chapel, and there's a plaque to both of my parents. So it was a wonderful day from that point of view. The second defining moment was really trying to be the person of the people that taught me. I wanted to be a Roger. I wanted to be a Detlef, a Peter Eads, a John Hogg. I liked those type of people. And the defining moment was to decide to be a schoolmaster. I really don't regret that. If I had my life over again, I'd do exactly the same thing. I spent many years, happy years at St. Peter's, at the Ridge, and then at a foundation called Leaf in the Barlow Rand Group. And then the circle was complete when I came back here as head of St. Albans. And I really think that that circle is a wonderful part that I've had to live. And then the third defining moment was the day that Rosemary asked me to marry her. I mean, the day that I asked Rosemary to marry me. And we've lived a wonderful marriage, a wonderful, happy life. Unlike Bradley, we've had an enormous number of holidays all over the place. And I try and do as little in the morning as well. But as a schoolmaster, you can do that, Bradley. I must talk to you later. I'll come and stay on your farm. Now we have 4 children, 1 of each. Bit quick for you guys. Now we have an eldest who is Stuart. He is nearly 30. He's a geologist like Frank. Then we have Julia. She's 27. She's a teacher like us, although she's given up teaching before we did. She's very good looking, and if you've got a son who's wealthy, give me your card and I'll try and I know Rosemary and Pete are looking. That's good. And then our daughter Lindy has Down syndrome, so she wasn't any of those. And that took us by surprise for a while. But we learned a tremendous amount from Lindy. She is unconditional love. She loves everyone. And if you let me know your birthday, she'll send you a card, I promise you. And then we have Douglas, who's 18, going on 26. He's really, in one night, he pranked my car, came back home, apologized, borrowed his sisters and pranked at the following night. And the second prank, he wasn't even in the car. He forgot to put the handbrake on it. Oh, you learn a lot from your children. So those are the 3 circles. My parents were one, my career and St Albans were the other, and now the final circle is with Rosemary at Bishop's, where Rosemary's father was the deputy head of the school, and we now live in the house from which we got married. So thank you guys, the class of 66, you were great mates. I think of you so often, I look at those photographs, and I'd also like to thank my matric dance partner, Rosemary, for coming tonight.
So, good evening everyone. I think it's my turn. You talked, I want to go back to the earlier theme of those disadvantaged people, because I was one too. And my thunder's been stolen by Frank, thanks. Because my introduction to the school was, yes, to be caned 6 of the best by a man with a very strong arm. And he did cut me, and it ran down my leg. The game was on then, because Anton came to me a few times after that. I made sure he did. And in fact, I held the record for cuts in the first year. A little guy called Atkinson took that record from me. He got caned 36 times in one term. It was good fun. Also, school was horrible for me. Not this school, but school. And I didn't know why. And Sunday evenings was the most terrible experience for me, in anticipation of 5 days to come, having to go through classrooms, with the exception of Tim. Because as we heard this morning, you did nothing in Tim's classes. By the way, and he was my lifeline. I got through this place because of Tim. Without him, I just wouldn't have got there. But I also found out what a fantastic person I was, what reserves I had. I excelled in sport where I really shouldn't have. I was a malingerer. One of those malingerers you're I wouldn't get into school today. I don't have the academic prowess. And I only found out at the age of 49 why. Because I'm dyslexic from here to Christmas. But it's a gift. When you get to learn that that's what it is, you can start using the paths in your brain. And what I do now is just amazing, and I'll tell you about it in a second. But everything you've heard today is true. The guys did what we had to do, but we had a lot of guts. Nobody gave up. Everyone was there for everyone else. Just like Tim said again this morning in the chapel, we're in over our heads. And I think the masters were too. They didn't tell us that. But look what's happened. It's just fantastic. It's an amazing place. And so this is the first time in 40 years that I've been back here. It's the first time in 40 years I've seen any of these guys. And I want to thank Rich, because he found me. He came digging, and he got me out from underneath a rock. And when the email came through saying this reunion's on, I said to Melissa, yeah, we're there, gotta go. We talk about completing circles. This actually completes a circle for me because I needed to face my past. So it's been really important for me that way. And sitting there this morning listening to those archipelago guys, and I don't think I even get that word right, the tears were just running down my face. I'm so happy and I feel so complete. So I want to thank you all for that. My path was out of here as fast as I could go. I ran into the army, and that was a mistake. Because I'd been a big fish in a small pool. And I found out what the hell it was to be a small fish in a large pool. I also found out that when they put a rifle in my hands, I didn't know whether I should shoot the guy in front of me or the guy next to me. I had no idea. I couldn't work that out. That was solved for me by my company, who transferred me to London when I was 23 with a wife and 2 children. That was the hurry I was in. I was sent to London by an advertising agency to learn how to buy TV, commercial TV, because South Africa was about to get commercial TV. The plan was I was to come back in 2 years as an expert in how to do this. I don't know how you learn that in 2 years, but they wanted me to try and do that. Never got to do that because it was an American multinational. They sold their interests for political reasons within 18 months. And there I was, stuck in London, shame. That was great. I spent 9 years there. It was wonderful. I joined another company called Graham Richardson, and I did amazing things. Flew the world, worked with amazing people, developed relationships with very senior people in organizations, and helped them advertise their products and build brands. That company then transferred me to Sydney, and that's where I've been for 25 years. Now I've got some bad news for you, and I apologize. I learned about 15 years ago that I'm now Australian. And the way I learned that was when South Africa ran on the field to play us rugby. I was rooting for the Australians. So that doesn't take my roots away. I am at root South African, and I'm delighted to be back here. My mother lives in South Africa. We've tried to get her over to Australia a couple of times. She came over to see us and said, I hate these people. I've got Africa in my blood, and that's where I belong. And I understand that she's over there in Krugersdorp fighting like mad. We took her to Glenhaven the other day to see if she wanted to check in to frail care there because she's wheelchair bound. She immediately attacked the matron. She's in a wheelchair. And a lot of people think that people in wheelchairs, as my mother likes to say, have their brains in the chair. So when she talked to me above my mother, she said, hello, I'm here, now take your place and stick it. And she said, I'll die where I am. Thank you very much. So that's what she's going to do. Anyway, I worked with amazing people like Bill Cosby. I worked with Al McPherson, made commercials and so on and so forth, worked with Charlie Bell. You people probably don't know who Charlie Bell was, but he was a swing manager at a McDonald's restaurant at the age of 15. He died at the age of 42 with colon cancer, having become president of McDonald's worldwide, having worked for no one else. And I think 4 years later he died. Amazing man. Really amazing man. And I spent 4 years being the biggest toy manufacturer in the world, making, Happy Meal toys. Anyway, came a time when all of that had to come to an end because I decided that really the corporate world didn't know how to run itself, and it wasn't going to let me run it. So I found a devious plan how I could do that, and I became an executive coach, a facilitator, a change agent, and so on. And now I work with big organizations, and I help them change. I work with them on their performance and behavior, and I get phone calls that say things like, thank you very much. I've just got the job of head of risk for the biggest reinsurance company in the world in Zurich, and it's all because of you. And that's a great privilege. and they throw lots of money at me to do it. And I love it. I really have a great time. And my dyslexia, for a change, is in my favour, because I have amazing sideways paths that I can run. So I just want to say to you, Tom, like everyone else, today has been amazing. And as you can tell, it's been unique for each of us. And me, it's been happy, sad, but I'll take away wonderful memories and I'll be back. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Noel Senogles, Lays to his classmates. I'm going to start my resume from when I left St Albans. Like most of my classmates, I went straight into military service. Initially to Valhalla for basics. We sort of marched around for 3 months doing nothing much more than that. And then was transferred to Albert in Cape Town for the rest of my service in Cape Town. After my military service, I really needed a break, so a very good friend of mine, a guy called Ken Miller, and myself decided to do what a lot of people were doing at that time, was like hitchhiking around Europe for a year or so. So we grabbed our rucksacks and we decided we were going to take a break and hitchhike around Europe. We found that the cheapest way to get there was to sail in those days. So we managed to get a ship from Cape Town to Barcelona. We arrived in Barcelona, these two young guys, just intent on having a bit of fun, and we decided our first port of call would be the German Beer Festival in Munich. So we started reaching, everything's very close in Europe. A couple of days, we thought a couple of days we'd both be there and at the festival. But it didn't quite work out that way. We stood on the road for the whole day hitching and nothing happened. So we were quite confused. And then luckily at the end of the day, a motorist pulled up and said to us that with two guys hitching in Europe, you guys will never get it. It's impossible, you've got to split up. So we said, okay, fine. So we split up, and lo and behold, we both got lifts. But before we left, we decided that we'd meet in Munich at the beer festival. Whoever got there first, every day at noon, we would stand outside the main gate at the railway station in Munich, and we'd meet up that way. Then I never saw Ken again for another year. So I went to the festival. I had a great time. And I went through Europe and had some fantastic times. Went to Israel, worked on a kibbutz, did all the things that like young hippies do, slept on the beaches. Had a lot of fun. And it was about a year later. I was walking into a pub in Scotland somewhere, and I saw Ken behind the counter, behind the bar counter. And I said, Ken, he looked at me out and he said, where were you? So he said, well, where were you? And I said, well, I was at the main station every day at noon. For a whole week I waited for you. And he said, well, I did the same thing. So we kind of pulled out our maps and we discovered to our horror that there were two main railway stations. He was standing at the one and I was standing at the other. So that was fantastic. After a year or so in Europe, I was going to get some work. I came back to South Africa. I joined the SABC, Springbok Radio in those days. There was no television. I don't think you guys remember that station. It was great there. The announcers in those days were the kind of heroes, superheroes of the time, not having television. Yeah, Gruesome Grish, Dougie Laws, yes. Robin Alexander, a lot of guys, and it was really, very good before my time. But they were sort of the celebrities of the media in those days. So I worked with Springbok Radio. Then the announcement came that television was going to arrive. So I was sort of the first in the queue. The SABC decided to employ a whole lot of people from the BBC to come and give courses for the technicians. So they brought out cameramen, soundmen, lighting people, various people to instruct us. I eventually decided to become a sound man. I joined the outside broadcast section of the SABC as a sound man. I've always been crazy for music and for sport. I'm sorry, I'm just going to have a drink and try now. And I felt that being an OB person, I'd have the opportunity to work in both those areas, and that's what actually happened. During one of our trips down to Durban to cover the Durban July, we were staying at a hotel called, I think it was the Kalani. And at that time, Roz was on holiday. She happened to be staying at the same hotel. And there was an Irish band playing in a pub downstairs. And the Kalani brothers that were playing at an Irish pub. And how old they are? Don't feel that old. And after the day's work, we used to go down to the pub and have a few beers and listen to some Irish music. And and one evening I sort of looked across the bar and there I saw this beautiful lady. And we kind of, we met in Durban, we fell in love. She later became my wife. I went back to Joburg to continue working. Roz, who was a teacher, went back to Port Elizabeth. And we carried on this little relationship for a couple of years, a long distance relationship. I eventually persuaded her to come to Johannesburg, and she got a teaching post at Henrietta Primary School. I was still at the SABC at that stage. Then, even though we had a television service, there were as you mentioned, there was no commercials at that stage. And I was approached by a big advertising agency called BBDO in Johannesburg about a year before commercial television started, to help set up a television department in the agency. So that's how I got into advertising. I left SABC, went into advertising, and I worked there for about 10 years at BBDO. And while I was working there, I met a lot of production house people, directors, producers, and those type of people, and I felt that that's what I really wanted to do. I mean, I felt more that I wanted to be closer to the sort of cold face of making a product, making movies, as opposed to the advertising agency, big corporate sort of work. And so when the opportunity arose, I linked up with the director and joined a production company, and worked for about 5 or 6 years in Johannesburg, in a production company. I then, it was about 13 years ago, left for Cape Town to set up an office for that company in Cape Town. I've been in Cape Town ever since. I've just recently started up another production company with some new, exciting talent, and I plan to do that into the foreseeable future. So I just want to thank you for today. Today for me has been an amazing experience. It was that walk from the assembly almost had me in tears. I don't know where to look. It was just fantastic. I also felt very undeserving. But thanks, guys. Thanks for everything. It's been fantastic meeting all my old friends again. I as well haven't been back here for 40 years, and it's just fantastic meeting up with the guys again. And I just want to say to the class of 66. Viva the class of 66.
It was a school of incredible freedom in the middle of the bush. One forgets that Pretoria ended at Atterbury Road in those days, and that there was no freeway. And you could drive from Pretoria, ride your bicycle from Pretoria, cross the road, and you'd be in farmland. With the dam, lots of cattle, you heard the story this morning. And the school in the middle of the bush, with a whole lot of boys who got up to all sorts of trouble and had the most amazing time. And if I recall, Albert, I was your vice captain there. I went to get that cake. But I also remember we had a wonderful time. I think we lost every single game from about 4 against all these great schools who were playing their D and E and F teams or whatever it was. But just to say, to repeat what Noel said, to start at that end, it's been an amazing day, and it's amazing that I went down to Cape Town 13 years as well, and I've just discovered that around the corner from now. So it takes that sort of connection to get back. But I must be absolutely honest that my life has been one of serial malingering. I think if I add it all up, I probably spent more time on holiday not working, which is why I'm very challenged in terms of cash flow. Actually, when I left school, the first job I got was with TC Mitchell, which is probably why I'm not a very good public speaker, because TC would never let you get a word in edgewise. But I learned one very important thing from TC Mitchell, and that is that plumbing never works. Because we spent about 4 months doing a job doing the drainage and venting for a massive, what was then a massive 25-story building in Joburg. All by hand in those days, long before computers came in. And at the end of it all, TC said, well, actually, you've got to change the dimension of one of the pipes at the top. And that changed the dimension of all the other pipes all the way up to the bottom. And needless to say, if you go to that building today and you try and use the toilets at the bottom, it's a massive challenge. And my discovery is, having looked at plumbing all over the planet, it's the same everywhere. But my history was, I left the school, went into a national service, along with Tim Farquharson and Eddie Phillips, who were in the Navy. I was in the Navy gymnasium, and the other two were in the other division of whatever it was in those days. So I spent a bit longer in the Navy, it was about 13, 14 months. Came back, went to Pretoria University for a short amount of time. I think it was about 5 or 6 months, and then there was an incident where a whole number of us were asked to go to other universities, which was a blessing. So I had a gap year there. Then I went to Wits, spent a long time, I think it was about 7 years, getting 2 degrees, which was unusual in those days because I had 1 degree in the sciences and another one in the humanities. So there were many years where I was absolutely unsure as to what I should be doing. So serially, I worked as a town planner, as an engineer, as a developer, as an estate agent, as a navigator, and as a shipwright, not necessarily in that order. And having gone through the whole cycle, I'm now back working as an engineer. And I must say, it's an enormous challenge coming back into it late in life with these incredibly bright young people. And I think that's a wonderful thing about seeing this system of education, is that the kids that are coming out of here are doing things that we would have been doing in second or third year university. Absolutely amazing. And I think the caliber of the kids that are coming out of the schools in South Africa generally is phenomenal. And I think just to repeat some of the things that were said here today, I think this is an amazing collection of human beings. And I'm absolutely blessed to have been part of this. And I think it was great fun. And maybe at our next reunion 10, 15 years from now, we can tell some of those stories about what happened with Keith Coppin and some of those weekly trips that we took to the drive-in. But those were great days, and I'd just like to say that it would be great to raise a toast to some of the teachers around here. There were some amazing people that taught us. Thank you very much to those of you who are here. And to Tom. Thank you.
I'm just going to use it. I go by a picture's worth 1,000 words, so this is just going to prompt me. There's a picture of us. I spent 9 months in the army, in the artillery. Yeah, Tim Baven, MG, is what prompted me to get a Mini Cooper S, which I needed to do my studies, to go to university and go to parties and stuff, and it also taught me a lot of auto mechanics, just keeping the thing going. I got a degree in civil engineering, had a lot of fun doing it at Blitz. And then I joined Basil Reed. Well, I did that and did a lot of student jobs. Ended up building a lot of bridges. I built 26 bridges in all with Basil Reed. And the two really big ones, one over the Vaal just below the barrage, and one over the Umfolozi Gorge, just south of Vryheid. I spent 10 years trying to get out of the army, and eventually a camp in Grootfontein, they let me go. I developed a love of motorcycles, and the first bike I ever rode was Reinhold Viljoen's Suzuki 50, and that started me on a motorcycling career. I rode a lot of races here. I rode the Roof of Africa 3 times and the whole enduro circuit for about 3 or 4 years. And of course you realize I got a broken foot, and that was from a stupid accident. And I had to put the slide in. I've broken my left leg 4 times. I've only had 4 accidents on a motorcycle in 35 years of riding, and it's always been my left leg. And I love it. People ask me how I got to the United States. My brother Hugh and myself decided we were going to do the hippie thing and tour Europe, the US, we were going to do Australia, and come back to South Africa. We were going to take a year over it. We did Europe and did a lot of skiing and did all the countries in Europe, and then we bought a van in New York and went across the US, got to California and stayed. We didn't realize, we had met a friend who said, "Why don't you stay?" And we said, "Why not?" And both of us got jobs in California and stayed. Hugh bought an ultralight, and we bought motorcycles and rode in the desert and had a lot of fun. We both got jobs. Hugh got an excellent job. I met my wife in South Africa, and she was in Denmark at the time, and I persuaded her to come over. And we got married. We left the church on a motorcycle. She's a wonderful girl. I brought it back when we got our green card and showed it at St. Albans. This thing keeps on moving because I wanted to get through in 4 minutes. So I have to keep on flashing back.
Talk faster.
It's difficult, and I'm taking more than 4 minutes because everybody else did. Yeah, when I came back in 85, is the last time I came to St Albans, and there was nobody here, and I walked around and showed my wife the building, and we bumped into Paul Haley-Petty. He was housemaster at Knoll. He was the only guy on the grounds here. Everybody was on vacation. And I'm glad I got to meet him, and now I'm super glad that I got to meet everybody else today. Joined an aircraft lighting company in Los Angeles. They moved up to Nevada, which was God's own country there for a motorcyclist and a skier, and enjoyed that. And then another lighting company lured me away to Ohio, and I've been in Ohio for the last 15 years, designing lights for aircraft. This is the kind of stuff we do, all the lights on aircraft. We got married and tried to have babies for 10 years, and it didn't happen. So I won't go into the long story. We adopted a child, and a year later we had a son of our own. But he was mentally disabled and physically disabled, and it's been a wonderful experience bringing him up. He's 10 years old. And when I turned 50, my car went over 100,000 miles. And my daughter Bronwyn was born, and she's a wonderful little girl. She's 6 years old now. I came back about every 5 years to visit my folks while they were still alive to South Africa. And last time we were here was in 2000. So it's about 5 or 6 years again. Keep coming back. We live in a super little log home in Ohio, and it's a lot of fun. There's lots of stories. I just threw lots of pictures in here, and I'd love to have time to go through them all. They will tell pictures. Pictures will tell stories. But I think I have to cut it short. I see John looking at me. Well, that's my life in a nutshell. I've done a lot of traveling with companies. Basically, Boeing is the people we try and satisfy. I went to a reunion in Atlanta in 2003, and then organized one in Nevada, and that was a fun enterprise. And now I promised I wouldn't do any more organizing, and I ended up organizing this trip to Timbavati. And 6 of us are going up there. That's going to be a fun. We're going to go Sunday. As I say, I'm not a public speaker, but I'd like to reiterate everything everybody said. I love you all, and thank you very much. Thank everybody here for everything. Thank you.
14 of us in the first Matric Class of St Albans in 1966, with 9 of us who attended the 40th reunion in 2006. We had our 50th reunion in 2016, attended by 7 of us. Graham and Ray didn't make it. We have a 60th reunion planned in 2026. See you there.